Hi everybody! Today we're going to start our lesson on the poultry industry. So first, I'm going to show you guys a picture. This is one of my favorite throw in the oven meals. These are chicken dino nuggets. And if you don't know what they are just frozen chicken nuggets that you can buy at the grocery store that's in the shape of a dinosaur. So to start, I want to ask, how do you guys think these chicken nuggets got to where they are? So if you bought them from a store, what happened before they got to the store, before you were able to buy them? Well, if they came in a truck to the store, what happened before that? I wanted to have a discussion of, you know, what the life of this dino nugget was before I bought it and put it in the oven. Because it's important to understand all the steps it takes for food to get to the consumer. It's really important to understand where your food comes from, even if it's in the shape of a dinosaur. So by the end of this, you guys will be able to list and explain the 8 parts of the structure of the poultry industry. These dino nuggets didn't just show up in the grocery store in the shape of a dinosaur. It had to start with a chicken, and then it had to get processed, and then it had to get further processed to become a dinosaur. Then it had to go through packaging and marketing and transportation to the grocery store. There are many steps before I was able to purchase these dino nuggets and put them in my oven. So it's important to understand where your food comes from, and you guys will be able to list and explain the parts and the steps it took to get to where it is. So first, I'm going to talk about the vertical integration of the poultry industry. All of the segments of the industry are linked, and they're often owned by the same company. This kind of setup allows for industries to develop its product efficiently and produce a high quality product. It allows for maximum control of the products being produced. This is called vertical integration. It looks a lot like a ladder where each step is built on the one before. The one before had to be completed before the next step can be continued. So, for example, this is what I am talking about when I say the ladder of the poultry industry. It has 8 steps, and the bottom rung is the primary breeders. Then it goes to the feed mills. Then it goes to your breeders, not your primary breeders, just your breeders. Then your hatchery, your grow-out farms, the processing plant, further processing, and then finally transportation and marketing is the last step, and this is where the consumer comes in. So we're going to go through all 8 of these steps so you guys have a better understanding of what is involved for each rung of this ladder. Your first step are the primary breeders. These are owned by international breeding companies, and they produce the parent lines for your industry birds. The whole point of primary breeders are they develop and reproduce strains of chickens that meet the requirement that chicken producers and processing companies are looking for. In this case, it could be things like extra white meat in the breast or extra big thighs, or efficient feed conversion, so companies aren't spending a ton of money on extra feed to get the chicken to the weight that it should be when it goes to market. So they aim to achieve these desirable characteristics through selective breeding, and once they have chicks that have these desirable characteristics, these chicks are sold to integrated chicken farmers. So primary breeders is the very beginning. These guys don't go to market. These are the very first. They're like the grandparents for those that go to market. They're the ones that everything starts with these. Then you have the feed mills. The feed mills are not a step that the chicken takes per se. The chickens aren't going to walk through the feed mill, but this is an important part because this is how a chicken gets its food, and its food is what allows it to grow into a chicken that will later eat. So these feed mills are owned by the companies, and they make feed according to specific formulas, and these formulas are designed by very, very specialized poultry nutritionists, and these different formulas are designed for different nutritional stages in the chicken's life. For example, when they're a newborn chick, new hatched chick, they get on something that's called starter, which is the very first thing that they're eating. This is high in a lot of proteins and a lot of extra nutrients that they need to be able to grow properly. A lot of times they're medicated to have extra like medicine for the birds so they don't get sick. Then they go into growers, which is when they're still a chick, but they're not fully the little fluffy yellow chicks anymore. They're more of like a kind of a teenage phase. Then they get into a grower, and that's more for just helping them finish up that last bit of development before they can start putting on weight. Females, if they're wanting to lay eggs, they have special layer feed. Layer feed has a lot of extra like calcium and special nutrients that the hens need to put in their eggs. So these are just some examples of different feed that's designed for different life stages of a chicken, and all of this is developed by the poultry nutritionist, and all of that is made by the feed mills for the birds. And yes, little comic, that's exactly how chickens react when you give them their food. Even if their food is completely empty or completely full, you put fresh feed on top of their full feed, then they have a ball. They have a great time. So, I'm sorry, the comic made me chuckle. The next up in the step is the breeders. The breeders come after the primary breeders. So the primary breeders are the parents of the breeders. The breeders have the specific characteristics that the companies are looking for from their parents, the primary breeders. So these chicks, the breeders, go to breeder growing farms to be raised to about 20 weeks old when they're considered mature and are able to reproduce. The raised chicks, or the raised birds, then go to breeder farms to produce fertile eggs. So breeding hens and roosters are kept under very tight biosecurity measures on these farms. Things like controlled heat, temperature, humidity, making sure that people have proper footwear, are not passing germs from house to house, because these guys are what are producing the broilers for the meat market. These guys are extremely important, and they have to stay healthy and be able to produce very fertile, very healthy eggs so that they can have chicks for the market. So the next step is the hatchery. After the breeders have produced their fertile eggs, those eggs go to a specialized facility known as a hatchery, which hatch the fertile eggs from the breeder farms. They have incubators where the eggs go to be carefully monitored for correct temperature and humidity throughout the 21 days it takes for the eggs to hatch. Near the end of the incubation, usually like the last like two or 3 days of the incubation, give or take, the eggs are then placed in a hatching tray, which is just a flat little tray where the chicks are able to peck their way out of the eggs naturally, and it allows the chicks to then stay warm inside the incubator so they can dry off and let them have a rest without constantly being rotated or smushed inside the regular incubator. So next up is the grow out farms. This is where the chicks from the hatchery go. So this is our third generation of birds. First you have your primary breeders. They are the parents of the breeders and the grandparents of the birds that go to the hatchery farm or to the grow out farms. So these are your broilers. These are the ones that go to the market. These are the ones that you would see in a grocery store. Independent farmers raise these chicks to market weight for the company. So the company provides the chicks, the feed, and the pharmaceuticals if that's needed, and the farmers provide barn, like shelter, water, litter, which is the bedding that they stay on, electricity, and then of course the farmers' very specialized management skills to make sure all the birds are healthy and get up to weight in a good way and are able to make it to market for the company. So the conditions like the temperature and the humidity in these rearing houses are heavily controlled for the birds' health. Too hot and the birds can become sick. Too humid and their litter might not dry out, which can help diseases run rampant through these rearing houses. So farmers have a very wide set of knowledge in terms of how to properly take care of these birds. It takes about 6 to 7 weeks, depending on what market these birds are meant to fill, if they're going to be broilers, if they're going to be roasters. It takes about 6 to 7 weeks for these birds to get up to weight, to market weight, and then once they're up to market weight, the company comes in and collects the birds humanely, very safely. They don't want the birds to be stressed out, and they transport them to the processing plant. The next step for the birds is the processing plant. These are plants where the birds are harvested using very humane standards and are inspected by USDA professionals for diseases and defects to make sure that diseased or defective birds don't go to market. The carcasses are chilled to stop bacterial or to slow down or stop bacterial growth so that the consumer doesn't get sick. And then these carcasses are then either packaged whole or cut up into parts. Oftentimes, if you buy like a whole frozen chicken or turkey for Thanksgiving, it's coming directly from the processing plant. However, if you buy something like Dino chicken nuggets, you're buying something that's going through a separate or a more specialized processing plant. These processing plants receive either full or cut up chicken parts and perform a variety of further processing steps. This makes the product more convenient and also adds value. So it's more convenient for the consumer, but it also raises the price because it's less steps for the consumer, but more steps for the plant. For example, the Dino Nuggets that we talked about at the beginning. To get there, they have to have the meat from the processing plant. They have to grind it up and they have to shape it into a dinosaur shape, not just a regular nugget shape. They have to actually put it in molds and shape it into a dinosaur shape. They then have to bread it and then bake it and then pack it in its own special boxes with special marketing across of it. And all of that adds convenience for me because I can just take it out of the freezer. I don't have to prep it. I don't have to defrost it. I don't have to bread it myself. Don't have to cut it into little dinosaur shapes. I can just toss it in the oven, and in 20 minutes, I have delicious Dino Nuggets. However, it also makes the price a lot more. So for one box of Dino Nuggets, which may only be, not that much chicken, I have to pay the same price as if I bought a box of 3 pounds of chicken breasts that just came directly from the processing plant. But the further processing allows for these kind of specialized types of chicken marinating, chicken breasts, extra breading, all this fun shapes, all that comes from the further processing. The last step is the transportation and marketing. So products ready to go to sale get transported in refrigerated trucks to consumers. So this could be grocery stores or restaurants or other places where you're able to buy chicken or turkey or whatever poultry you're working with. But this is the last step, and this is what most people are familiar with. If you see a Tyson truck rolling down the street, or you see a commercial for Tyson or Purdue Chicken, this is what most people are familiar with. But there are 7 more steps that happen before the chicken even gets into these trucks or into the grocery stores and into the hands of consumer or into my oven. So the final thing that I want to go over is, why is vertical integration a thing? Why don't we just have one company that raises the birds and one company that processes them and one company that does the feed and one company that packages it and sells it to people? And the answer to that is a vertical integration, having one company do all the steps. Number one, allows the producers greater control of production quality. You're not having to communicate with multiple different companies to try to figure out what went wrong, if something, had to get sent back or there was a recall or something. They're able to go directly to their own company and figure out what happened. They have a lot more control over what's happening with their product. It also allows for more cost-effective production. That means that these companies that have this vertical integration, they don't have to source out to other companies to do these steps. They don't have to pay extra. And all of that saves them money allows for them to lower the cost of their products. So overall, it just means that the companies have more control, less cost, which means we also have less cost. So I don't have to pay twice as much for my dino nuggets. I can just buy them at regular price and know that I'm getting a good quality product. So now you guys know what vertical integration is, what steps go into the ladder of the poultry industry, and why vertical integration is so important so that the products that we buy are affordable. And now you know why I'm able to afford my delicious dino nuggets. That's it. I'm done. That was my last video.